Growing up, I always knew I was different from the rest of my family. While my cousins were the loud, flashy types, throwing parties, bragging about expensive sneakers and chasing attention, I was the quiet one. The one who preferred books over beer, plans over parties. They laughed at me, mocked my clothes, rolled their eyes at my dreams. I wasn't one of them, not really. I was the odd one out, the black sheep, as they liked to call me when they thought I couldn't hear. At family gatherings, my ideas were dismissed, my accomplishments ignored. If I brought home straight A's, they barely noticed. If my cousin Jason scored a C and won a football game, he was treated like a hero. I learned early on that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I achieved, I would never be enough for them. I wasn't loud enough, cool enough, or careless enough to fit in, but I didn't let that stop me. Instead of wasting time trying to earn their approval, I focused on building my future. I worked 2 jobs in college, skipped vacations, and poured everything I had into starting my own business. It wasn't easy. Nothing ever was, but I made it. Slowly, success came, and with it, financial freedom, stability, and a life I was proud of. But funny thing about family, they only seem to care when there's something in it for them. For years, they acted like I didn't exist. Never called, never asked how I was doing. But once word got around that I was doing well, the invites started rolling in again. Suddenly, I was welcome at dinners, group chats, and holiday plans. Not because they cared about me, but because they thought I'd pay. What they didn't realize was this: I hadn't forgotten how they treated me. I remembered every smirk, every joke, every moment they made me feel small. And while I had grown, changed, and built a life on my own terms, I wasn't about to forget who I was to them when they thought I had nothing. This time, I wasn't the quiet kid they used to mock. This time, I was in control. For most of my life, I was invisible to my family, unless, of course, they needed something. Birthdays came and went without so much as a phone call. Holidays? I was lucky to get a forwarded group message. But the moment they found out I was doing well financially, the tone shifted. Suddenly, my phone was lighting up again. Distant cousins, long silent aunts, even the uncle who used to call me a nobody at every family BBQ, they all wanted to catch up. But the pattern was too obvious to ignore. At first, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they'd changed. Maybe they genuinely wanted to reconnect. But as the calls rolled in, so did the subtle requests. Hey, could you help Jason with rent? Rachel's car broke down again. We're a little behind on the mortgage this month, any chance? It was always wrapped in sugar. Always followed by, you're doing so well, we're proud of you. Like flattery was a form of payment, but I could see through it. They didn't miss me. They missed what I could do for them. To them, I wasn't a son or a cousin. I was an ATM with a heartbeat. And the saddest part? They didn't even try to hide it. At one family dinner, after they'd ordered the most expensive meals and laughed their way through 3 rounds of drinks, they slid the check in front of me without even asking. You've got this, right? They said, as if it was expected. As if it was my role. That night, I realized something. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about the way they saw me. Not as a person, not as family, but as a resource. So I stopped. No more surprise payments. No more quiet bailouts. If they wanted a relationship, they'd have to build one without a price tag attached. Because I wasn't born to be their safety net. Sometimes it takes being used one too many times to understand your worth. And once I did, I promised myself never again. There was a time I believed that helping my family was just what good children did. I covered their rent when money was tight, paid for my brother's unfinished college degree, and made sure there was always food in the fridge. At first it felt right, like I was fulfilling some sacred duty. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. My help stopped being appreciated and started being expected. It wasn't gratitude I received anymore. It was entitlement. I remember one moment clearly. I had just gotten off a 12-hour shift, my back aching and my mind foggy from stress. I got home and there it was, a voicemail from my mom. Don't forget your father's prescription this week, and Jason needs $200 for books. No greeting, no, how are you? Just demands. Like I was an employee working a thankless job. It hit me then. They didn't see my sacrifices as acts of love. They saw them as responsibilities I owed them. The worst part? When I finally said no, the reaction wasn't concern. It was outrage. "How could you be so selfish?" they asked, "after everything we've done for you?" But the truth was, I had built my life with little to no help. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school. I paid off every debt on my own. When things were tough, they weren't the ones bailing me out. I was the one keeping them afloat. I realized they weren't asking for help anymore. They were demanding it. Because to them, my support wasn't a gift. It was a duty. My success didn't belong to me. It was something they felt entitled to. That realization broke something in me. So I stopped. Not because I didn't love them, but because I finally loved myself enough to stop letting them take advantage of me. Family should be about mutual care, not lifelong obligations masked as love. If your value is tied to what you can give and not who you are, it's okay to walk away. Sometimes choosing peace means choosing distance. And that choice? It's not selfish. It's survival. For years, I lived with the quiet fear that if I ever stopped helping my family, they'd turn their backs on me. I worried that saying no just once would make me the villain. After all, isn't family supposed to stick together? I clung to that belief even as the weight of their expectations slowly crushed me. Every time the phone rang, I braced myself. Not for a warm check-in, but for another request. Rent, groceries, car payments, emergency dental bills. There was always something. And every time I reached into my wallet and gave, sometimes even when I didn't have much to give, I told myself I was doing the right thing, that this is what love looked like. But deep down, I was afraid that if I stopped, they'd shut me out. I imagined cold shoulders at family dinners, whispers behind my back, being labeled ungrateful or selfish, so I stayed quiet. I kept paying. I kept sacrificing. Until one day I saw the truth. A message meant to stay hidden, a video accidentally sent, revealed what they really thought of me. Behind my back, the same people I had supported for years laughed at me, called me pathetic, said I was too soft to ever say no. They didn't just take my help for granted, they mocked me for giving it. And that was the moment everything changed. The fear I carried for so long evaporated. Not because it wasn't real, but because I saw that they had already turned their backs on me. I was never truly one of them. Not in their eyes. I was a bank account, a backup plan, a useful tool. I thought I had something to lose by saying no, but the truth was, I had already lost something far more precious, their respect. And when that's gone, what are you really holding on to? So I let go. I stopped answering their demands. I blocked the guilt, the pressure, and the manipulation. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. Sometimes the hardest part of standing up for yourself is realizing that the people you feared losing were never really standing with you to begin with. And once you understand that, you stop fearing the silence. You start welcoming the peace. I remember the first time I said no to my family. Not a soft no, not an "I'll think about it" or a "maybe later." Just a firm, simple, "I can't help you this month." I stared at the screen after I hit send, heart pounding, unsure what would come next. I half expected a call asking if I was okay, if something had happened. But instead, the response was swift and painfully clear. There were no questions about my health, no concerns about my well-being, just panic about the unpaid rent. "Emma, what do you mean you can't? We're counting on you. You know your brother has no other way to pay." It hit me hard. Not once did they ask if I was struggling. Not once did they check on me. Their only worry was the bill I wouldn't be covering. I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't their sister. I was their safety net, an income source with a name and a heart they had no interest in protecting. All those years I had convinced myself they needed me, that my giving was love, that their reliance on me meant I mattered. But the second I stepped back, they didn't try to understand. They tried to guilt me back into place. It was a painful realization, but also a freeing one. When you give and give, expecting love in return, you set yourself up for heartbreak. But when you stop giving and see how quickly people turn cold, you realize the love you thought you were buying was never real. My family wasn't mad that I was in trouble. They were mad that they might have to take responsibility for once. That moment taught me something I'll never forget. People who truly care about you will worry about your well-being, not just what you can do for them. And people who only show up when they need something, they were never really there for you to begin with. Sometimes saying no is the greatest act of self-respect you can offer yourself. Because the people who love you will understand. The ones who don't, well, they'll reveal themselves soon enough. And once they do, you won't miss their silence. You'll finally feel peace. There's a moment when you've given and given that you stop and wonder, do they actually care about me or just what I do for them? That question hit me hard the day I stopped paying my family's bills. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just said, I can't help this month. And suddenly, everything changed. Not a single, are you okay? No, is something wrong? No, how can we help you for once? Instead, it was panic. Not because I might be going through something, but because their next rent payment wasn't covered. I had become their walking ATM, their emergency fund, their lifeline. Not because they cared for me, but because they were used to leaning on me without ever offering a shoulder back. That realization, quiet, heavy, broke something in me. For years, I thought love meant sacrifice. That giving until it hurt was the price of being a good daughter, a loyal sibling. I thought helping them proved my worth. But I was wrong. Their concern wasn't about me. It was about losing access to the money. They weren't worried about my stress, my job, my mental load. They were worried their bank account might finally close. That's when I saw them clearly. All the manipulation, the guilt trips disguised as affection, the constant, you're the only one who can help, reframed as, you owe us. The truth? They didn't want me. They wanted what I could provide. And when that stopped, their affection vanished like smoke in the wind. For older folks like you and me, we've seen this before. Relationships that are one-sided. People who call only when they need something. It's painful, but it's also a wake-up call. True love, real family, is about mutual care. Not keeping score, not keeping someone financially trapped. So when I said no for the first time in years, I was met not with empathy, but with threats, with silence, with rage. And that silence, it finally gave me peace. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And when you finally choose to walk away from being used, you don't lose family. You reclaim your dignity. And that's something worth more than any check I ever wrote. For most of my life, I believed that helping family, no matter the cost, was the right thing to do. I paid bills, covered rent, and bailed them out of financial messes more times than I could count. I never asked for anything in return. I figured that's just what you do for family. But then, one day I said no. Just once. Not with anger, not with drama. I simply said I couldn't help that month. I expected disappointment, maybe even a little confusion. But what I got was an emotional earthquake. Suddenly I was called selfish. My phone was flooded with messages, first polite, then desperate, then downright cruel. Not a single one asked if I was okay. No one checked to see if I was struggling. The concern wasn't about my well-being, it was about their loss of control. And that's when it hit me. They weren't devastated because I said no. They were panicking because their safety net had snapped. Their human wallet had spoken up. Everything I had done over the years, every dollar, every late-night call answered, every bill I paid, was invisible the moment I stopped giving. Their love had always been conditional. And when the conditions changed, so did their affection. For many of us in our later years, this moment of realization can be heartbreaking. We raise children, support siblings, care for aging parents, all in the name of love. But love without respect isn't love at all. It's exploitation. When I stopped enabling them, their world didn't fall apart because of some financial crisis. It fell apart because they had to face the consequences of their own choices. They had to look inward, and they didn't like what they saw. So I stayed quiet. I didn't fight back. I let the silence speak for me. And as painful as it was, that silence gave me something I hadn't had in years: peace. Sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. Not out of anger, not to punish, but to protect the one person you've been neglecting all along, yourself. And when you do, you may lose people, but you'll find your freedom. After years of quietly supporting my family, paying their rent, covering their emergencies, and being the one they always turn to, I finally decided enough was enough. I didn't yell. I didn't beg for appreciation. Instead, I opened my laptop and wrote the most important email of my life. It wasn't angry, it was honest. I titled it, Final Summary. Then I attached every financial receipt I had, bank transfers, Venmo payments, copies of bills with my name on them. Years of support, neatly organized. No exaggerations, no emotion, just facts. At the top of the message I wrote, "Here's a detailed summary of everything I've done for you over the years. I'm no longer your lifeline, your ATM, or your backup plan. I will not be manipulated by guilt or obligation. I will not accept disrespect in the name of family. This is the last message you'll receive from me. Don't contact me again." And I clicked send. In that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Many older adults will understand this kind of exhaustion. You give and give, especially to family, because that's how we were raised. But when giving turns into expectation, and expectation turns into entitlement, something has to change. Otherwise, you lose yourself. They never expected the email. They certainly never expected to see it all spelled out. Every dollar, every act of generosity they'd conveniently forgotten. And suddenly, they couldn't spin the narrative anymore. I wasn't the selfish one. I was the only one who ever stepped up. The aftermath? Silence. Not even a response. Not a thank you. Not even an argument. Just silence. It said more than words ever could. That email wasn't just about money. It was a declaration of worth, of boundaries, of self-respect. Sometimes we need to remind others and ourselves that love without respect is not love at all. And setting limits, even late in life, is not weakness. It's wisdom. So if you've been carrying the weight of everyone else's needs, maybe it's time to write your own summary. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to click send. As we grow older, many of us are taught that family comes first, no matter the cost. We give, we sacrifice, we stay silent in the name of love and responsibility. But there comes a time in life when we must ask ourselves, at what cost? Emma's story is not just about financial betrayal. It's about a hard-earned realization that love without respect is not love, and giving without appreciation is not virtue. It's self-abandonment. For years, she poured her time, energy, and income into supporting her family. Not because she was forced to, but because she believed that was what good daughters do. And yet the very people she helped mocked her behind closed doors. They didn't see her as family. They saw her as a convenience. Many older adults, particularly those raised in a culture of duty and doing the right thing, may relate. You've probably helped your children or siblings at your own expense. Maybe you've kept quiet during moments of disrespect just to keep the peace. But silence, over time, doesn't bring peace. It creates resentment. What Emma did may seem harsh to some, but in reality, she did what many never find the courage to do. She stood up for herself. She set a boundary. She said no more. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in clarity, in truth, and in love for herself. The real lesson here is not about money. It's about recognizing when giving becomes enabling, when helping becomes harmful to both you and the people you're trying to help. Sometimes the greatest kindness is allowing others to stand on their own feet, even if it means watching them stumble. For those of us in our golden years, the temptation to just keep the peace can be strong. But peace at the cost of your dignity, your well-being, or your joy is not peace, it's submission. And you've lived too much life, survived too many storms, and earned too much wisdom to keep shrinking for the comfort of others. So if you've ever felt used, unappreciated, or taken for granted, know this. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to say, I deserve better. Because you do. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs the reminder. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or personal experiences. And if you've ever had to choose peace over people, tell us about it. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs today.